Let's jump into Google Docs and take a look around. Now, before we get started, I want to just make sure you know there are a couple ways to access Google Docs from this menu here. The first is to go up to our waffle, our grid up on top here, and if we click on that, we can see that Docs lives right here, in this instance, in my grid on the second row. If you don't see it on this first row, you can always scroll down, and a lot of times you'll see it down in the second tier of your grid here. You can also take and just type in docs.google.com, and when you do that, basically what you get is you get to the template gallery here. So notice that I have the opportunity to go ahead and create a blank document, or I can look at the template gallery, and if I expand it, basically it will show me all of the different templates here that I'm able to use to create different types of documents inside of the Google Docs environment. Notice also, because I'm in a domain, I have a general template gallery that everybody has access to. I also have a Beyond the Chalk template gallery, which is only viewable by those individuals that are in the Beyond the Chalk domain, and you should see that too if you're inside of a domain. So I'm going to come back to here. The third way that I can do that, and I'm going to have to go back out to my grid here. Let's say I'm sitting inside of Google Drive and I want to add a document to my Google class here. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on Google Class. And if I go to New and I click here, notice I can also go from a blank document or from a template as well. So there's lots of ways to get into your Google Doc word processing environment. So I'm going to come back here to my grid here, my waffle. I'm going to click on Docs, and it's going to go ahead and launch a new doc here. I'm going to go to blank, and that's going to take me into my untitled document. Now, the first thing that I would recommend that you do is just make sure you title your document, because there's nothing worse than going to your drive and seeing 40 or 50 untitled documents in there. So I'm just going to call this Jeff's test document here, and we're just going to take, and it's going to say that. Notice it says saving here. You'll also notice that I put a folder here. So when you create a document like I did using the waffle, it's going to throw this into your My Drive folder. Now again, we talked about file management and how important that is. We can actually take and move this by clicking on this folder right here. So if if you like using that waffle to create a document, just remember that it's important to go back and move from My Drive. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Google Class. Click there. I can actually put it into another folder. I can create a secondary folder here, or I can just say move here. And what it's going to do, it's going to throw that in. It reminds me about the sharing of that folder. I click OK. I now have a document that's saved, and I moved it from My Drive to the Google Class. Again, if I don't want to do that, it's going to give me a little window here that allows me to undo or dismiss for a few seconds, and then that's going to end up going away. Let's take a look at some of the basic features of Google Docs. Again, it's going to look a lot like some of your other word processing programs. So for example, I have my menu items up here, right? And if I click on each one of those, I get a series of tasks that I can do for each one of these different menus here. So you can kind of scroll through those and see the different things you can add there, and we'll get to some of those a little bit later. I also have my tools down here, and notice that I can do different things, change the view size here, change my text. I do have more fonts now. Notice that when Google Docs first came out, there were limited fonts. They're now adding more fonts to here, and I can also click here and add additional fonts from there. Change the font size, bold, italics, underline, and so on. I can even change my text color, my different justifications here, so on and so forth. So lots of things that you can do. One thing to note, if you're viewing Google Docs on a smaller screen, sometimes you won't be able to see all these tools. And if that's the case, what will happen is you'll see something, instead of editing right here, you'll see something that says more right over here that allows you to click on, and it will drop down the additional tools that are not visible given your screen size. So that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward on each of these different tools here. I'm just going to take and I'm just going to copy a whole bunch of text onto here so we can actually take a look at some of the features that you can use inside of Google Docs. First and foremost, anytime I highlight or select anything here, that allows me to do or use one of these tools to make that change through all of the text. So if I want to change this to a different font size, I can do that. I can also change it to a different color If I like, I can even do something like highlight this body of text if I need to for whatever reason. And again, just like any other word processor, I have my undo buttons here where I can take and I can click and I can undo some of those changes that I've made. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning here. So really simple, really easy. Again, if I want to just select one word, I can do that. Come over here to underline. I can underline that piece right there. If I want, I can take and I can italicize that piece right there. So again, I would ask you to just kind of go through and explore some of the different tools that you can use inside of Google Docs. Again, so just like in other word processing programs, I can change to a different type of text, like subtitles, titles, headings, and those types of things. Lots of people like to use those in order to organize their document here. Now, one thing to be aware of, if I'm like, I got to save this, remember that Google Docs saves about every half second. So you never have to worry about taking and saving a document inside of Google Docs because it's going to do that for you. We also have the ability to do things like add links, and you might have heard the term hyperdoc. Well, if we wanted to, we can take this link right here, or this text right here, and we come up here to our link, insert that link, and we're just going to go ahead and add this right to this link. Now, I'm not sure where this link goes. You have to be careful, or you can enter your own link in. But once I apply that, what you'll notice is that then adds that link to this document. So we basically hyperlinked, called hyperlinked a website to this document. And so a lot of teachers are now using one document as their master, and they're putting links in like I just did to allow students to go from this document out to a specific page instead of giving them taking them to Google and then having them search for that, which tends to help them get kind of lost. We can actually direct them to the actual document or actual site that we want them to go to. So one other thing that I want to show you here, and again, I would ask that you jump out or you jump into Google Docs and try some of these things out here. Again, there are some tools on in the menu here that don't show up here on the toolbar. So just know that underneath each one of these, we have lots of different options. Notice we can do equations and drawings and different things like that. A lot of people ask about, okay, I have a Google Doc. I like using it because it's collaborative, because it's easy, because I can get to it from anywhere. But my teacher, my instructor, wants my document to be in Word format. One of the coolest things about Google Docs is that once I create it, I can actually take this document out and I can download it as a Word document and several other formats, a PDF even. I can even do an EPUB if I'd like to. So if I'm trying to get my students to create writing that I would later then turn into an e-publication, I can even use this format here. So I'd recommend that you jump in and just kind of play around a little bit with some of these tools in these menus and on your toolbar here to find out more about Google Docs.